The form you forgot to file. Human published transcript, annotated edition. Source: Veyron Harmonization Authority Administrative Hearing Record, Lacrima Corridor. Human editorial note: this version is republished by human hands from a lawfully obtained, partially redacted public transcript. Footnotes have been added to preserve context that does not qualify as evidence, but absolutely qualifies as reality. All footnotes are clearly marked FN number and are not part of the original VHA record. Annotated by Captain Calder Rourke. Veyron Harmonization Authority, Office of Corridor Stability, Lacrima Corridor. Proceeding type: Administrative hearing, civil compliance. Matter: VHA versus Human Vessel Horizon Mercy. Docket: LC-77-1149/ Unlicensed Emergency Intervention. Presiding: Adjudicator Ithrun Merrick. Clerk of Record: Dravun Kell. Witnesses: Captain Calder Rourke, Human Vessel Master. Gideon Hale, Human Logistics Officer. Dr. Priya Sato, Human Medical Lead. Siv Aurel, Convoy Navigator. Public access: limited. Transcript release redacted. Recording integrity verified. Note on attribution: after the initial appearances above, VHA officials are referred to by title only: adjudicator, clerk. Witness names remain intact. Session 1. Formal docketing and statement of alleged deviations. Clerk: proceedings initiated. All parties acknowledge civil jurisdiction of the Veyron Harmonization Authority within the Lacrima Corridor. Adjudicator: let the record reflect this is not a criminal hearing. No allegation of malice, no allegation of violent harm, only deviation. Clerk: deviation category: unlicensed emergency intervention. Subcategories filed as follows: A. Unauthorized medical practice across species classifications. B. Unauthorized resource redistribution. C. Unauthorized towing and propulsion assistance. D. Failure to submit pre-authorization form series 11A through 11L prior to engagement. E. Disruption of harmonized response pathways. Penalty schedule applied. Civil fine, corridor operating surcharge, administrative recovery fee, and deterrence multiplier. Brief pause. Captain Rourke: that multiplier, what's it called again? The one that takes absurd and turns it into mathematically insulting. Adjudicator: Captain Rourke, please confine your commentary to relevant topics. Captain Rourke: understood. I will confine my commentary to relevance as defined by your statute and its footnotes. Adjudicator: excellent. Moving on then. Captain Calder Rourke, master of the human vessel Horizon Mercy. Do you dispute the facts as stated? Captain Rourke: no. Murmurs. Public gallery. Adjudicator: then you admit you provided aid without authorization. Captain Rourke: I admit we provided aid without pre-authorization. I dispute that aid was unauthorized under your own governing text. Adjudicator: you have filed an appeal then. Clerk Dravun Kell? Clerk: appeal was received, comprising 79 attachments, 13 statutory references, 6 precedent citations, and... pause. An index. Captain Rourke: 2 indices. Clerk: 2 indices, 1 cross-language. Adjudicator: excessive. Captain Rourke: thorough. Adjudicator: moving on. The authority does not discourage rescue. We discourage chaos. Captain Rourke: then we have the same goal. We just differ on what chaos looks like when it's wearing a dosimeter and screaming. Adjudicator: your vessel acted. The convoy survived. Good. That is not in dispute. The question is whether your action must be punished to preserve corridor stability. Captain Rourke: or whether your stability deserves to be preserved if it requires punishment for saving lives. Pause. Adjudicator: clerk, Enter that statement as rhetorical and not binding. Clerk. Entered. Adjudicator. Proceed with the authority's summary. Clerk. On cycle 4412.77, a mixed-species convoy of 8 vessels sustained an unexpected kinetic impact event. The object was not detected within the corridor hazard window with sufficient time to evade. Following impact, one convoy vessel suffered a breach of reactor shielding with subsequent radiological release. Corridor response protocols were activated. A queue was assigned. An approved responder was dispatched. Prior to arrival, human vessel Horizon Mercy entered the response zone without authorization and performed emergency shielding and containment assistance, medical triage, resource sharing, towing assistance, and unauthorized intership transfers. Captain Rourke. You missed hand-holding. I held a child's hand while her mother vomited herself inside out. That wasn't an option on the form. Adjudicator. Captain? Captain Rourke. Yes, sorry. I'm adjusting to the corridor's preferred vocabulary. Adjudicator. Your appeal cites an ancient clause. You believe it exempts you? Captain Rourke. I believe your own legal framework, if you read it like it matters, permits immediate aid when delay causes preventable loss of life. Specifically, Statute 4.1.2, subsection K, the Reasonable Immediate Aid Clause. Adjudicator. Subsection K is rarely invoked. Captain Rourke. That doesn't make it imaginary. Adjudicator. It also does not make it applicable. We are here to litigate compliance. This body will recess, and we will reconvene after review of the appeal's structure. Captain Rourke. Take your time. I've filed enough reading to keep you warm through a solar winter. Clerk. Session adjourned. FN-01. Human footnote. Applied to Session 1. They call it the cleanest peacekeeping operation in the quadrant, and they aren't lying. Everything about the authority is clean. Clean language, clean math, clean hands. Even their anger is clean, shaped into polite syllables and released only in approved quantities. The problem is, space doesn't respect cleanliness. A rock doesn't queue. A breach doesn't submit a request. A reactor doesn't wait for a stamped approval to start poisoning the air. Session 2. Consideration of Appeal and Statutory Interpretation. Clerk. Proceedings resumed. The authority has reviewed the appeal in full. Adjudicator. Captain Rourke. Your filing is unusual. Captain Rourke. Thank you. Adjudicator. It is not a compliment. You have cited subsection K. You have also cited 3 precedent cases. Gideon Hale. 5, actually. 3 formal precedents and 2 administrative memos treated as de facto precedent due to repeated application. Both memos are in attachment 12 with translation notes. Adjudicator. Your role, Gideon Hale. Gideon Hale. Logistics. Also the person who keeps the ship supplied and the captain from punching people. Adjudicator. This is a hearing. Gideon Hale. Yes, I'm aware. I read the pamphlet. Adjudicator. For the record, pamphlet reference is irrelevant. Captain Rourke. It's relevant. It proves we did the homework. Adjudicator. Captain, your argument is essentially, we broke the rule because the rule contains an exception. Correct? Captain Rourke. We didn't break the rule. We followed the part of the rule that exists for moments when rules become lethal. Adjudicator. Subsection K requires necessity. Captain Rourke. Necessity is not theoretical when you've got an uncontained reactor leak blooming inside a convoy ship's life support envelope. Adjudicator. The authority's position, necessity does not override harmonized procedure unless delay is proven. The corridor's approved responder was en route. Captain Rourke. And would have arrived after exposure thresholds crossed from treatable into we start counting funerals. Adjudicator. You will support that claim. Captain Rourke. Gladly. Impact timeline, hazard detection logs, radiation dispersion projections, and the authority's response time estimate. Attachment 21. There's a chart. Clerk. Point of fact, there are 3 charts. Captain Rourke. We like to be thorough. Adjudicator. Let us hear from your medical lead. Please identify yourself for the record. Dr. Priyasato. Dr. Priyasato, medical officer aboard Horizon Mercy. Adjudicator. Dr. Sato, summarize the medical necessity, briefly. Dr. Sato. Briefly, if we had waited, people would have died. Adjudicator. Elaborate within acceptable length. Dr. Sato. A reactor shielding breach changes everything. Unlike a radiation storm, you don't get a neat exposure event that ends when the storm passes. You get a continuing release, particles in ventilation, contamination in suits, hot spots in passageways. The longer you wait, the more bodies you have, and the fewer of them are recoverable. Adjudicator. The authority notes that corridor responders are trained. Dr. Sato. Training doesn't beat time, and time doesn't negotiate. Adjudicator. You administered care across multiple species. Dr. Sato. Yes. Adjudicator. Without species-specific licensing. Dr. Sato. Correct. Adjudicator. That is dangerous. Dr. Sato. So is letting a mixed-species convoy marinate in reactor bleed while we wait for someone with a seal to show up. Long pause as Dr. Sato takes a deep breath. We used universal stabilizers. We followed known contraindications. We consulted convoy medtechs when available. We did not attempt elective procedures. We triaged. We stopped bleeding. We isolated contaminated compartments. We deconned people in cargo bays because it was the only space big enough. If you want a form for that, I can invent one. But it won't bring back the ones who are lost here, or those who will be lost in similar situations, waiting for this form to be filed, reviewed, and approved. Adjudicator. Your appeal requests not only relief from penalty, but also a formal acknowledgement that subsection K applies. Captain Rourke. It applies, and everyone in this corridor knows it applies. They just rely on you never having to say it out loud. Adjudicator. Captain, you are arguing policy through legal mechanisms. That is inappropriate. Gideon Hale. Respectfully, statutes are policy with teeth. Adjudicator. Clerk, note for the record, Mr. Hale's statement is argumentative. Gideon Hale. So is charging a fine for rescue. Adjudicator. We will hear the convoy witness at the next session. The witness is still en route, and this body requires time for rest and review. Clerk. Session adjourned. FN02. Human footnote appended to Session 2. They don't rage like we do. No shouting, no threats, no dramatic slams. Their anger is sterile, an immaculate silence where your words should have landed. This was the first time I saw the clerk's throat fans flush. Not full-color panic, just a faint bloom, like a bruise forming under a perfect uniform. It's hard to stay clean when the thing you're defending is a queue in front of an open reactor. FN03. Human footnote. Observations not admitted into record. Entirely outside the hearing transcript as required. This part never makes it into the record because it isn't evidence. It's atmosphere, the kind that sticks to your skin and follows you home. The fine went out across public channels like a polite execution notice. Unlicensed emergency intervention, payable within 3 centicycles, or corridor privileges suspended, docking access limited, flight plan approvals delayed until the heat death of the universe. The number itself was impressive, not because it was large, though it was, but because it was precise. Someone had taken the idea of compassion and reduced it to a billable event. We docked at a side port while the authority processed our appeal. We didn't have the money. We weren't going to get the money. That was the point. Everyone knew they didn't want payment. They wanted posture. They wanted an example. They wanted the next would-be rescuer to watch us break and decide to keep their hands clean. Word traveled anyway. Ports are living organisms. Rumors are their bloodstream. At first, it was laughter, bitter, private laughter. A spice trader from the inner spur pulled me aside and said, "So, what's the rate on heroism? Per kilogram? Per hour. He laughed like he was afraid the sound would be recorded. A dock worker, species I didn't recognize, hands like braided rope, handed Gideon Hale a paper chit, old-fashioned like a token of superstition. It read, "Thank you for not waiting." No name, just that. The convoy survivors scattered to their destinations. Most didn't want trouble. Trouble is expensive. Trouble sticks to your manifest. Trouble gets your cargo randomly selected for inspection until it spoils. But one voice kept surfacing in the comm chatter. Civ Aural, avian navigator, eyes too big for the galactic average day cycle lights of regulated spaces, speaking in quick bursts like someone used to correcting their words mid-flight. They tried to keep quiet. The corridor didn't let them. By the second Terran day, approximately 2.5 centicycles, the watching turned into a kind of vigil. A rival relief organization, one that wore the authority's seal on their hull because it was the only way to operate, sent a message. Not public, a private ping with nothing but a line of text. Don't let them make us choose between our license and our soul. Someone else sent a different kind of message. A copy of our fine, annotated with little notes. This surcharge is new. This clause is misapplied. They're testing you. No sender, no signature, just the soft presence of someone inside the machine, tapping on the glass. The authorities' media outlets ran their narrative. Humans are impulsive. Humans are disorder. Humans mean well, but meaning well is not a substitute for harmonization. They showed clean shots of tidy uniforms and serene docking bays. They did not show the scorch patterns inside a breached reactor bay. They did not show what contamination looks like when it rides the air you've breathed. And then, quietly, the corridor began adapting the way animals adapt when a predator changes its pattern. Ships started turning off their emergency transponders after impacts, not because they didn't want help, because they didn't want authorized help that arrived too late and arrived with paperwork that made death look orderly. Convoy captains started carrying extra shielding on the sly, black market dosimeters, contraband decon foam. The corridor didn't become safer. It became more secretive. The authority had built a world where kindness required permission. So kindness started learning how to sneak. By the night before Civ Aural's testimony, we received another anonymous packet. This one wasn't commentary. It was formatted. It had a header. It had a reference number. Post-aid compliance template, draft. Subsection K, invocation guide. Reasonable immediate aid checklist. Gideon stared at it like it was a weapon ready-made to fight back. He wasn't wrong. Session 3. Witness testimony and issuance of determination. Clerk. Proceedings resumed. Convoy witness Civ Aural present. Adjudicator. State your identity and role. Civ Aural. Civ Aural, navigator for the convoy vessel Myriad Drift. I handle route solutions, hazard forecasting, emergency patterning. I filed the distress ping. Adjudicator. You understand you are under oath to corridor record. Civ Aural. Yes. Adjudicator. Describe the incident. Civ Aural. We didn't see it in time. That's the truth. Our hazard sensor net flagged nothing significant. The corridor feed said nothing significant. It was a small object, dark, cold, the kind that doesn't reflect enough to matter until it's already too late. It struck the ship along the midline. Clean impact geometry, the kind you brief for and pray you never see. The flash was brief, almost polite. Then my board lit up with patterns I recognized immediately. Containment flags, shielding integrity collapse, cascade warnings marching in sequence, exactly the way the Sims teach you they will. But the real problem, it wasn't the alarms. It was the telemetry lagging behind reality. Numbers updating in the correct order, in the correct language.
while the hull itself was already shedding heat and particulates into deep space. The training scenarios always assume your instruments are honest. Out there, for a few breathless seconds, they were late. Not wrong, late. And in a reactor event, late is its own kind of failure. Then we finally got the radiological warning. Reactor shielding breached.
Adjudicator. And the authority responded. Civ Aural.
Yes, a responder was assigned, but by then the contaminant release had already started. Our ventilation started spreading the radiologically contaminated air throughout the ship. We didn't have time for the queue.
Adjudicator. Did the human vessel arrive before the authority responder? Civ Aural.
Yes, they were already close. They didn't ask what our species were. They didn't ask what our cargo was. They asked how many compartments were hot and how many people were unaccounted for.
Adjudicator. Did you request their assistance? Civ Aural.
I requested help. I didn't specify paperwork.
Adjudicator. Did you grant them authorization? Civ Aural.
I don't have that authority. That's your job.
Adjudicator. Then their action was unauthorized. Civ Aural.
It was necessary.
Pause. Adjudicator. Necessity is not a legal category. Authorized and unauthorized are. Civ Aural.
Then your law is missing a category.
Adjudicator. The witness will refrain from instructing the authority. Civ Aural.
I'm not trying to instruct you. I'm trying to tell you what happened. If they had waited, I would be dead. Not later, not eventually. I mean dead. We were losing people while we waited for permission to be rescued.
Adjudicator. Elaborate. Civ Aural.
2 deaths confirmed before human arrival. 4 more would have followed within the hour based on exposure and injuries. Dr. Sato can confirm. After the humans arrived, none additional. People lived who certainly wouldn't have lived otherwise, myself included.
Adjudicator. The witness is dismissed. Captain Rourke, your appeal presents 2 outcomes. Either the authority upholds the fine and establishes that rescue without authorization is punishable, even under imminent fatality, or the authority reduces or vacates the fine and acknowledges subsection K's applicability, thereby requiring procedural revision. Captain Rourke. That's the shape of it, yes. Adjudicator. You are not here to reform corridor law. Captain Rourke. Then don't make the law a weapon pointed at anyone who breathes without permission.
Clerk. The record reflects the authority has previously invoked subsection K in limited circumstances.
A long pause. Adjudicator. State the circumstances.
Clerk. Precedent case LC-12-0009, fuel depot fire. Immediate aid by unlicensed contractors retroactively recognized as reasonable to prevent corridor-wide catastrophe. Precedent case LC-33-221, hull breach cascade. Immediate aid by non-authority tug crews recognized due to time sensitivity. Administrative memo 77-C, emergency ration redistribution during station famine conditions.
Gideon Hale. And the pattern is, subsection K is used when the corridor risks embarrassment, not when individuals risk dying quietly.
Adjudicator.
Argumentative. Captain Rourke. Accurate. Some portion of the transcript here is redacted, but the record reflects that after a brief further exchange, the authority took a recess to make its determination.
Clerk. Proceedings resumed. Determination prepared.
Adjudicator. The authority will now issue its determination. In consideration of the unique, time-sensitive conditions of an unexpected kinetic impact event resulting in radiological hazard, and in acknowledgement of subsection K within the harmonization statutes, the authority finds the human vessel's actions meet the threshold for reasonable immediate aid under subsection K in this specific instance. However, the vessel remains in procedural violation for failure to submit post-event compliance documentation within the prescribed window. Captain Rourke. We filed within 2 centicycles. Adjudicator. With an appeal, not the correct forms series. Gideon Hale. 'Cause the correct forms series didn't exist in human languages. Adjudicator. It exists. Gideon Hale. In 6 dialects that don't map to our translation suite. We requested access. Adjudicator. Your request was queued. Captain Rourke. Of course it was. Adjudicator. Regardless, the authority now vacates the deterrent multiplier and reduces the penalty to a procedural fee, contingent upon submission of newly issued Form K immediate aid within 5 centicycles. Murmurs, public gallery. Adjudicator continuing. Further, the authority will publish an interim directive establishing a temporary post-aid compliance pathway for non-authority responders operating under subsection K. Captain Rourke. So, you're rewriting the law. Adjudicator. We are clarifying a narrow technical pathway. Proceedings concluded. Case closed. Clerk. Session adjourned. FN 04. Human footnote. Final. They called it a narrow technical pathway. That's what the authority does when it changes. It refuses to admit it's changing. They don't say we were wrong. They say we have clarified. But the corridor heard the part that mattered. Subsection K applies. The words were in the record now. Clean, official, undeniable. Later, in the docking bay, Gideon handed me a data slate. What's that? I asked. He didn't smile. Not really. A template. On the slate was a header I recognized from the anonymous packet. Only now it had official seals. Form K Immediate Aid. Post-aid compliance documentation. Reasonable immediate aid invocation. There were blanks to fill, check boxes, a section for number of lives preserved, like that was an inventory. A place to list resource redistribution, like kindness was a shipping error. I should have hated it. I didn't. Because under the header, in smaller text, so small it felt like a confession, was a line that hadn't been there before. If delay would reasonably result in preventable loss of life, immediate aid is permitted. Documentation shall follow. I saw the clerk in the corridor afterward. Uniform perfect, posture perfect, face arranged into the approved calm. But the eyes weren't clean. The eyes were tired. Captain Rourke, the clerk said, very softly, like the words were contraband. Your compliance window is 5 centicycles. I'll file your form, I said. You have my word. A hesitation, half a breath, then, the directive will be distributed. Good, I said. That night, the ComNet didn't light up with victory chants. It lit up with something stranger. Relief groups forwarding the directive to each other like it was medicine. Dockmasters sharing the clause in quiet channels. Traders pinning the line to their bridge walls like a prayer. The authority hadn't lost. Not exactly. But it had blinked. And once you've seen the cleanest machine in the quadrant flinch, you start to wonder what else it's been avoiding looking at. Some laws are built to protect you. Others are built to protect themselves. The difference is who pays when the air runs out. Thanks for listening to Dispatches from Seoul. Like, comment, and subscribe so the next whisper doesn't die in the queue.